I remember that morning vividly. The sky was like a crumpled sheet of gray cloth, and the sun hid behind thin, cold strands of cloud. Everything was still, too still, as though the world had forgotten how to move. I was in my shabby rented room in Loomhaven, the city where I taught a few reluctant students the art of symbolistics, when the postman knocked on my door. He handed me a dark brown envelope, sealed with wax marked by a half-closed eye, a symbol I had never seen before. The paper was stiff, and its scent, it smelled of time itself, of places where wind no longer reached. Inside were only a few lines. To Mr. Elias Thorne, I, Agatha Vane, current caretaker of the Duskvale estate, hereby invite you to Duskvale Manor for a short stay to examine and catalog our family's collection of antique books. Many have suffered from mold and decay, and we require a scholar who can discern their true worth before we decide on their transfer to the Royal Bibliothecary. All travel and lodging expenses shall be covered. Kindly arrive before the long mists settle. Lady Agatha Vane. No address accompanied the letter, only a short note scrawled beneath. Follow the road west out of the city. When the river Lyrith turns the color of ash, you will have reached the borders of Duskvale. I had heard the name Duskvale before, but only as rumor. A valley, people said, where the sun never fully rose. It merely lifted as a pale smear of light before sinking again into the fog. The place appeared on no modern map, and no one knew whose land it truly was. Some scholars claimed it was a myth, a resting ground for those unwilling to leave the world. I should have ignored the letter, but as with all scholars entranced by mystery, I could not resist. 2 days later, I packed a few notebooks, pens, an oil lamp, and set off. I did not know it would be the last journey of my life. The road to Duskvale was long and desolate. I traveled by carriage hired from a small outpost called Rivelin. The driver was an old man with a face like weathered bark. His name was Marrow. He said nothing for half a day, until dusk began to creep in. "You truly mean to go to Duskvale?" he asked, his voice low and rough, like wind through a crevice. "I have been invited," I replied, showing him the letter as proof. He glanced only briefly at the seal, then stared straight ahead. "That valley. Best not arrive after sunset." I smiled. "And why is that?" "Because when night falls, the people there are no longer themselves." He said nothing more. We reached the edge of Duskvale at twilight. Just as described, the river Lyrith, if that was truly its name, had turned ashen gray, perfectly still, reflecting nothing. A worn wooden bridge crossed it, leading to a narrow cobbled path through a forest of black oaks. Above, the fog hung thick like woven cloth. The horse began to tremble. Marrow tugged the reins. "I take you no farther," he said. "Beyond this point, you walk alone." I paid him, thanked him. He didn't answer. As the wheels began to turn away, I heard him murmur under his breath, "Don't look into mirrors at night." I turned to ask him what he meant, but he was already gone. Swallowed by the mist. Duskvale was unlike any place I had seen. No birds, no wind, only the brittle crackle of dead leaves beneath my feet. The path wound through barren fields, where charred husks of trees jutted from the soil like hands of the dead. And then, through the gray veil of the valley, I saw it, Duskvale Manor, a towering 3-story structure with sharp gables and countless windows half-closed like weary eyes. Its walls were buried under moss and creeping vines. From an upper window, a curtain stirred, and I could have sworn someone was watching me. When I knocked, the sound echoed long, as if descending through deep caverns. A woman answered the door, small in stature, elderly, yet with unnervingly bright eyes. "I am Agatha Vane," she said. "Welcome to Duskvale, Mr. Thorne." I bowed slightly. She led me inside, where dozens of candles cast wavering light on dark wooden walls. The air was thick with beeswax and the scent of aged paper. Along the corridor hung portraits, dozens of them, each painted in somber tones. The faces, all bearing the vain name, shared the same expression: weary, doubtful, waiting. "You arrive just before the mist sets in," Lady Agatha said softly. "Tomorrow you may begin your work in the West Library. But there are a few rules you must follow." "Of course," I replied. "First, do not enter the attic. It has been sealed for years. Second, after the clock strikes 12, you must not leave your room. And third," she paused, her eyes glinting, "never look into a mirror in Duskvale after midnight." I laughed lightly, thinking it a quaint superstition. She did not. "We have lost too many to mirrors," she whispered. My room was on the second floor, overlooking the garden. Spacious but cold. Only a small fireplace offered warmth. As I entered, a maid brought in tea. She kept her head bowed, silent. When I thanked her, I noticed her hands trembling. "Are you all right?" I asked. She looked up briefly, large, dark, empty eyes, then turned and left, leaving the tray shaking slightly on the table. I took a sip. The tea was cold, as though drawn from a deep well. The first night at Duskvale Manor. The wind whispered outside, but the sounds within were different, murmurs, like voices between the walls. I told myself it was only the breeze slipping through cracks in the masonry. Then the candle before the mirror flickered, and in the dull reflection, I saw a face, my face, but the reflection stood a step back while I stood still. I spun around. No one. When I turned back, the mirror was ordinary again. I blamed fatigue, whispering that darkness plays tricks on tired minds. Yet in that instant, I swear, the reflection smiled. Morning came pale and thin. I went to the West Library. It was vast, large enough to house a small cathedral. The carved shelves curled like the roots of ancient trees. Light from stained glass windows painted the floor with stretched, finger-like shapes. Lady Agatha waited, resting her hand on a thick, leather-bound tome. "This," she said, "is the Vane family collection. You will begin here." I glanced over a few titles: The Mirror of Souls, Chronicles of Reflections. The Hollow Faces, all about mirrors, reflections, and souls. "Your family seems rather fascinated by the idea of reflection," I remarked. She smiled sadly. "Reflection is memory, Mr. Thorne, and memory never truly fades." She left me alone. I opened the first volume. Inside, a handwritten note bled across the yellowed page. "When one stares into a mirror long enough, the mirror begins to stare back, and one day it will wish to trade places." I copied the passage into my notebook. When I looked up, I noticed a large silver mirror on the wall, one I was certain hadn't been there before. In its reflection, I stood alone, but behind me, a door was open. In the room itself, no door existed there. That night, rain fell hard. Wind howled through the halls like a funeral horn. As I wrote at my desk, I heard 3 slow knocks at the door. When I opened it, no one. Only the long corridor, lined with portraits, staring back at me. A chill brushed past my neck. The candle went out. In the dark, a whisper came. "You have arrived." I lit the lamp again. The room was empty. But on the mirror, a faint handprint lingered, as if pressed from the other side. The next day, Lady Agatha announced that one of the maids had disappeared, the same girl who had brought me tea that first night. Everyone was silent. "Perhaps she left?" I offered. "No one leaves Duskvale," she said, turning away. That night, I heard footsteps above, on the attic floor. The one forbidden to me. They paced back and forth, then stopped directly over my bed. I shut my eyes, forcing away curiosity. But some inner impulse drove me to rise, take my lamp, and open the door. The corridor was pitch dark. Only the faint gold of my lamp cut through it. I climbed the stairs. The air grew colder, heavy with the smell of rot and dust. At the end of the attic hall stood a door bound by a faded red cloth. On it, carved in an ancient tongue I should not have understood, yet somehow did, "Where reflection begins to breathe." I reached out to touch it, but a voice sliced through the dark, dry and sharp as a blade. "Mr. Thorne, I told you not to come here." I turned. Lady Agatha stood a few paces away, her face dim in the lamp's glow. And then I saw it. Her shadow was gone. I stammered an apology and backed down the stairs. When I looked again, the door was sealed as if it had never been disturbed. That night, I dreamed. I stood in a room of mirrors. Walls, floor, ceiling, all reflective. In every mirror stood me, but each wore a different expression. Fear, pain, manic laughter, silent tears. And in the center, one mirror stood empty. As I approached, the glass slowly formed an image, not mine, but Lady Agatha's, younger, with long black hair and eyes like pits. She said, "Elias, you've come here many times before. Have you forgotten?" I woke drenched in cold sweat. The oil lamp still burned, but what made my blood freeze, the mirror in my room had cracked, as though struck from within. When a pale dawn crept through the fog, I resolved to leave Duskvale. I knocked on Lady Agatha's door. No reply. Downstairs, the servants were gone. The house was silent, thick with the smell of damp and iron. I returned to my room to pack, but when I opened the door, all my belongings had vanished. In their place sat a single leather-bound journal, old, frayed. I opened it. On the first page, it read, "The Journal of Elias Thorne, year 1843. I was born in 1843. How could that be? I flipped through the pages. The handwriting was mine. The entries described everything I had experienced, from leaving Loomhaven to this very moment. The last line ended mid-sentence. I hear footsteps behind me. I dropped the journal, turned around. In the mirror, a figure stood beside me. But in the room, there was only me. As I stepped closer, the figure did not retreat. It smiled, the same smile I had seen that first night. And then, it reached out of the glass. I don't remember the exact moment that hand touched me. Only the cold, as if 100 shards of ice brushed my skin at once. Then darkness swallowed the room whole. When I opened my eyes, the oil lamp still burned, but the mirror before me no longer reflected anything. It was pitch black, thick and heavy like a pool with no bottom. I can't say what happened next. I only remember running, bursting out of the room, down the hall, nearly tumbling down the stairs. All of Duskvale Manor was silent. No voices, no breath of human life. Only when lightning flashed outside did I glimpse, in the hallway mirror, someone walking behind me. The next morning, the sky was dull gray. Misty drizzle drifted like dust. My head ached as I left my room, convincing myself that last night had been a trick of exhaustion. But when I stepped into the library, I noticed something was wrong. The books I had neatly arranged yesterday were now scattered open on the floor, as if someone had rifled through them all night. On the desk lay a single book, placed with deliberate care. Chronicles of Reflections. The leather was cracked, the ink faded. Near the end, a passage was written in jagged, fresh strokes. No one truly disappears in Duskvale. They simply cross to the other side of the mirror, and sometimes one of them returns. As I read those lines, I heard a faint whisper, as if someone murmured just behind my neck. I turned. The library was empty, but I swear the bookshelves trembled, as though something had just passed by. I went looking for Lady Agatha to ask about the missing servant, but she wasn't in her room. A tall, thin man with white hair introduced himself as Mr. Corvin, the steward, saying she was resting. I had never seen him before, though I'd been here 4 days. He spoke little, his voice flat and mechanical. "I'm in charge of the lower floors," he said. "If you need anything, knock 3 times on the wall, but never 4. "Why?" I asked. He replied without pause, "Because the 4th never answers with silence." That afternoon, I wandered the estate. The sky over Duskvale never truly brightens. The sun is a pale smear behind the mist, like a ghost adrift. Behind the manor lies an overgrown garden, the grass reaching my knees. In the center stands a stone statue of a veiled woman holding a small mirror. Its surface was cloudy, but when I wiped it clean, a reflection emerged. Not mine, but that of a woman weeping, her hair falling over her face. I stumbled back, dropping my oil lamp. When I bent to pick it up, the mirror in the statue's hands was gone. That night, I tried to write down what I'd seen, but my hand trembled so badly the lines came out crooked. I lit a candle. Its glow cast my shadow across the wooden wall. Then I noticed my shadow wasn't moving quite right. When I raised my hand, it was a heartbeat late. When I turned my head, it stayed still. And then its lips moved. "You're writing it wrong, Elias." I threw my pen and spun around. No one was there. Only the mirror quivered faintly, as if it were laughing. I no longer know if I'm awake or dreaming. Some nights I find myself standing in the corridor with no memory of leaving my room. The door is always open, though I swear I lock it each time. Once, I saw Lady Agatha in the library at night. No candle, no lamp. She stood before the great mirror and whispered something. The glass rippled like water, and a hand reached out from within to touch her cheek. She smiled. I gasped, knocking over a candle stand. When I looked again, the room was empty. Only the mirror remained still, and on the floor, 2 wet footprints side by side. Day 6 in Duskvale. Lady Agatha finally summoned me to her study. "You seem tired," she said. "Duskvale affects newcomers strangely, but in time, you'll adjust." I asked her about the ritual in the book. She only smiled faintly. "Our family has an old belief," she said, "that the soul never vanishes, only reflects into another world. Mirrors are the windows between the two." "And the missing people?" I asked. Her gaze faltered for a moment, tinged with pity. "Sometimes those on the other side need company." She handed me an antique key, saying it opened the western basement, where forbidden manuscripts were kept. "If you truly wish to understand Duskvale," she said, "go there. But remember, do not look into any mirror on your way down." I held the key all afternoon, afraid to use it, but curiosity won by nightfall. I took my lamp and descended. The wooden stairs groaned beneath me, the air thick with the smell of damp stone. The final door opened with a dry crack, into a circular room lined with fractured mirrors, and at the center, a small stone altar bearing a half-burnt book. The light flickered across the cover. Ritual of Reflection. I turned a few pages and read what remained. "When the 2 worlds meet, the living and the shadow shall merge as one. But if the ritual is broken, the shadow will hunger and the living will fade." I didn't fully grasp the meaning, but cold dread crept down my spine. I reached to close the book. The lamp sputtered and died. Footsteps echoed in the dark, slow and deliberate. "Lady Agatha," I whispered. No reply. Only breathing, close, right beside my ear. I struck a match. For a split second, light flared, and in every mirror around me, dozens of faces identical to mine stared back. All of them had their eyes open, except me. I screamed through the lamp and fled up the stairs. At the end of the hall stood Lady Agatha. "You shouldn't have gone down there," she said coldly. "But you gave me the key," I shouted. She looked at me, confused. "What are you talking about, Elias? I haven't seen you since yesterday." My blood froze. "No, you gave it to me this morning, in your study." She shook her head. "The study's been locked since last week, ever since Mr. Corvin disappeared." From that day, time ceased to feel real. The light in Duskvale Manor was always the same, dim, yellow, unreal. I began to see myself in places I shouldn't, in window glass, framed photos, even puddles on the floor. Each time I turned away, my reflection stayed, watching. I tried to leave, but every time I passed through the iron gate, I found myself re-entering the house from another corridor, as if the valley folded in on itself to keep me inside. On the 8th night, I heard voices in the hallway, Lady Agatha's, and another that sounded exactly like mine. I crept closer, peering through a crack in the door. In the library, she stood facing me, or rather, facing someone who looked like me, scar and all. He smiled. "He's growing weaker," he said. "Just one more step." She nodded. "The cycle will complete. Duskvale needs a new Keeper of Mirrors." I froze. Keeper of Mirrors, what did that mean? I backed away, but the hinge creaked. Both turned toward me. When I looked again, the room was empty. I returned to my chamber, shaking. My journal lay open on the desk, though I had locked it away. On the blank page, fresh ink spelled out, "You are not Elias Thorne." I dropped my pen, gasping. The air grew heavy, thick with unseen breath. I rushed to the mirror to shatter it, but when I raised my hand, I stopped. The reflection no longer copied me. It stood still, smiling, then lifted its head and spoke clearly. "You're just the leftover shadow. He was here first. Now it's your turn." I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. "Who are you?" I screamed. It answered, "What you're about to become." The glass trembled, cracked, and glowed faint blue. I ran, through the halls, down the stairs, until I saw Lady Agatha waiting at the base of the staircase, a candle in her hand. Its light carved her face into a wax mask. "Elias," she said softly, "you've seen your shadow, haven't you?" I didn't answer. "Not everyone is chosen," she went on, stepping closer. "Only those who carry a piece of the other world can hear the call." "What do you want from me?" "Not I," she whispered. "They do." She gestured toward the mirrors along the corridor, and in each, a figure watched me. Every one of them was me. I screamed, stumbling backward. She handed me the candle. "When this flame dies," she said, "they will cross through. If you wish not to vanish, find the chamber of reflection. There, truth will show itself." Then she turned and disappeared into the mist. I stood alone, holding the dwindling flame. In the nearest mirror, my shadow smiled. I returned to the library. The room was unnaturally still. On the table, Ritual of Reflection lay open, the wind flipping to the final page. Scrawled across it were the last words. "The reflection has no memory, only what the last one left behind." Then I understood. Too late. Every Elias before me had fallen to the same ritual. I was merely a reflection, born to replace the one who faded. And when I vanish, another will take my place. The candle went out. In the dark, hundreds of whispers rose, hundreds of me laughing. Their laughter melted into the fog as the clock struck midnight. I have lost all sense of time. I no longer know how long I've stayed at Duskvale Manor. A week, a month, or perhaps a lifetime. All I know is that every time I wake, the corridors grow a little longer, the mirrors multiply, and the voice inside my head grows clearer. "Go to the cellar, Elias," it whispers. "The truth is there. The door opens only for you." I tried to ignore it, but each time I did, another Elias would glare at me from inside the mirrors, furious. At last, on the 10th moonless night, I took Lady Agatha's half-burned candle and descended into the western cellar. The old iron door screamed as it opened, like something in pain. A gust of air blew out from the darkness beyond, carrying the chill of stone and iron and the faint scent of human ash. This cellar was unlike any other place in Duskvale. There was no dust. Everything was unnervingly clean. The stone walls gleamed, polished to a mirror's sheen. Along the passageway hung rows of oval mirrors, each one veiled with a sheet of black cloth. My footsteps echoed. Water dripped steadily from somewhere below, like the rhythm of a beating heart. I walked until the corridor ended at a great bronze door engraved with ancient words. Speculum Custos, the keeper of mirrors. I touched it, and it swung open soundlessly. A wave of cold air struck my face. Inside was a circular chamber, vast and deep as a stone well. At its center stood a mirror, nearly reaching the ceiling, its silver frame carved with twisting human faces. Before it, upon a stone pedestal, rested a white porcelain mask with hollow eyes. I stepped closer. In the candlelight, the mirror did not reflect me. Instead, I saw another room, its walls of stone, its mirrors cracked. And within it stood Elias, holding an identical candle, staring back. I understood then, he was the reflection. Or perhaps I was. "Who are you?" I whispered. He smiled, a warped, uneven smile. "You're asking the wrong question," he said. "The right one is, who is real?" He moved closer, and I, almost unconsciously, mirrored him. The distance between us shrank until our noses nearly touched the glass. He raised his hand. I did the same. Our palms met through the surface, and the mirror rippled like water. "Only one of us can remain," he murmured. "Duskvale needs a new keeper." I stumbled back, but his hand shot through the glass and seized my wrist. I screamed, pulling with all my strength, yet the force from the other side was monstrous. The candle fell, its flames snuffed out. Darkness swallowed the room. In the blackness, 100 whispering voices surrounded me. "You've looked too deeply. Now you must replace him. Come in, Elias, come in." I shouted, but my voice echoed back, distorted, as though coming from inside the mirror itself. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing before the mirror, but on the other side. The cellar here was darker, older. The walls cracked and dripped with moss. Across the glass, the other Elias gazed at me. He straightened his collar, smiled faintly, and bowed. "Thank you, Elias," he said. "I'll keep Duskvale safe." He turned, taking the candle with him, and ascended the stairs. I pounded on the mirror, shouting, "Let me out! You're the reflection, not me!" But he vanished, and the light within the mirror dimmed until nothing remained. I was alone in the dark. I don't know how long passed before someone opened the cellar door. Light from an oil lamp cut through the gloom, and Lady Agatha's voice drifted in, calm and precise. "Another keeper, Duskvale endures." She entered, carrying the porcelain mask. Gently, she set it upon the pedestal before the mirror. I pressed my hands to the glass, desperate, but all that remained was a faint mist where my palms had been. She smiled, her eyes fixed on something far beyond me. "Do not fear, Elias. Time will help you forget." Then she drew the black cloth over the mirror, and I fell into perfect darkness. There is no day or night here. I do not hunger. I do not thirst. Only loneliness remains. But sometimes the mirror trembles and a narrow slit opens, allowing me to glimpse the newcomers to Duskvale. Scholars, servants, wanderers lost in the storm. They all look into the glass eventually, and when they do, another me appears, staring back, trembling in horror, just as I once did. And I understand. This is Duskvale's eternal cycle. The living become the reflection. The reflection takes their place. No one ever leaves. But then something begins to change. One night, the mirror glows, not with candlelight, but with pale moonlight streaming through a crack in the wall. In that light, my shadow moves on its own. It turns toward me and speaks in a voice almost gentle. "You can escape, Elias, but you must trade places." I laugh bitterly. Trade places? With whom? With the next one. I understand. If someone looks into this mirror, I could pull them in and take their place, just as he did to me. I stand motionless, torn between two thoughts, one yearning for freedom, the other revolted by the thought of it. Then I hear footsteps descending the stairs. The door creaks open. A young maid, no more than 20, steps in, holding an oil lamp. "Lady Agatha told me to clean this place," she mutters nervously. "They say someone went missing down here." I freeze. The lamplight falls upon the mirror. I see myself within it, gaunt, hollow-eyed, no trace of humanity left. She steps closer, curious. Who's there?" I raise my hand. She startles, stepping back, but too late. A thin crack runs across the mirror's surface, widening. I feel the rush of real, cold air flooding in. Just one pull, and I'd be free. She would take my place. "Do it," my shadow whispers. "You deserve to live." I press my palm to the glass. She gasps, dropping the lamp. The flame bursts across the floor, blazing through the room. For an instant, the light reveals hundreds of faces in the mirror. All the Eliases before me, all screaming, pleading, reaching out. And I understand. If I do this, the cycle will never end. I tighten my fist and step back. The fire spreads to the stone pedestal. The girl screams and runs, leaving the cellar to burn. I watch as the flames crawl toward the mirror. The whispers rise in panic. "Don't, Elias. If the mirror breaks, you'll cease to exist." I smile faintly. "Good," I whisper. "Perhaps that's the only true freedom." I raise my hand and strike the glass. A sharp crack, then a burst of white light, and everything dissolves. When I awaken, I'm lying on cold grass. The sky above Duskvale is a bright, impossible blue. No manor, no mirrors, only scorched earth and the smell of ash. In the distance, I see the maid sitting on a hill, weeping. She looks up, sees me, and gasps. Who are you?" I start to say I'm Elias Thorne, but the voice that leaves my throat is not mine. The scars on my hands are gone. In the reflection of a nearby puddle, I see a stranger's face. I am no longer Elias. I am someone else. And behind me, in the emptiness, comes the faint, distant sound of shattering glass, like the laughter of my own forgotten shadow. The morning wind at Duskvale carried a chill, tinged with the scent of ash and metal. I sat on the hillside, looking down at the land where the manor once stood. Now there was only a scorched foundation, walls half collapsed and blackened, and in the center, a hollow depression where the mirror used to be. No more howling corridors, no more candle smoke, no more Lady Agatha's voice, only silence, heavy and complete, as if the world itself were holding its breath. I should have felt joy for surviving, but there was only emptiness. The maid I had saved, her name was Clara, had built a small hut for me on the hill. She cared for me, bringing food and water, though her eyes still carried a trace of fear. "You don't remember anything?" she asked the first time. I only shook my head. "Maybe it's the smoke," I said. "I just remember I had to burn it." She was quiet for a long while. "No one believes you're alive," she whispered. "They say Duskvale was cursed, that anyone who looked into their mirrors vanished. But you came back. You should leave this place. Leave." The thought felt like a dream too far away, because even if Duskvale had turned to ash, it was still inside me, like a burn that never healed. That first night after the fire, I dreamed. I walked a hallway that stretched endlessly, lined with broken mirrors on both sides, reflecting hundreds of faces fading into shadow. Among them was me. Not one, but many versions of me, standing in rows, all staring with hollow eyes. One stepped forward and whispered, "You think you escaped?" I tried to answer, but I had no voice, only a rasping breath, and when I looked down, my hands were translucent, dissolving like mist. I woke up drenched in sweat. Outside, the moonlight glimmered on the puddles scattered over the burnt ground, and in that water, I saw myself standing among the ashes, smiling up at me. Days passed. I tried walking farther, through forest, over hills, across a stream. But no matter how long I walked, when the sun set, I found myself back at the same hill, Duskvale's ruins waiting in the distance, as if the world itself circled endlessly around this pit. One night, I asked Clara, "Have you ever tried leaving the valley?" She said, "I have, but the road always turns back. Maybe the land is cursed." Then she looked at me strangely. "Or maybe you're part of the curse." I began noticing things, subtle, small. My shadow didn't move with me. My reflection in the well water grew faint. One morning, when I washed my face, the basin reflected nothing, only a dark swirl, like an eye opening beneath the surface. I looked up at the small bronze mirror on the wall. For the first time since the fire, a familiar figure appeared. Elias, the real one, pale eyes sunken, the scar still on his left cheek. "You think you saved someone?" he said, his voice echoing inside my skull. "You only changed the pattern. Duskvale isn't gone. It just moved, inside you." I stumbled back, dropping the mirror. It shattered, scattering like quicksilver. But in every shard, his face still stared back, smiling. Clara came running at the noise. "Are you all right?" I nodded, hiding a fragment beneath my coat. She glanced around the tent, then whispered, "You know, last night I heard singing in the wind, a woman's voice. It came from underground." My heart froze. "Where?" "Right beneath the ashes," she said. "Something down there didn't burn." That night, I returned to the ruins. The moon was dim, the mist thick. In the center, a hollow gaped deeper than before, as if the earth itself had been hollowed from below. From within came a soft wind and a voice, faint, almost like a lullaby. I climbed down, lamp in hand. The deeper I went, the colder it became. At the bottom lay a short stone corridor, what was left of the old cellar, and at the end it waited, the mirror, not whole, but still standing, a large fragment among the ashes. The glass was dull, but under the lamplight it glimmered like an eye opening. Inside I saw myself, not Elias, but the face I wore now, the man born from shattered glass. The reflection smiled, and a whisper seeped from the mirror. "You came back. You can't leave where you were born, Elias." "I'm not Elias," I said, trembling. "Oh, you are, just wearing a different skin. You replaced him, and soon you'll need a replacement too." "No, I destroyed the ritual." "No, you opened it. Duskvale wasn't burned. It transformed. Now it lives in your reflection, in your eyes." I wanted to smash the glass, but my body refused. The mirror began to tremble, and faces bloomed across its surface. Lady Agatha, Lord Corvin, countless Elias figures, merging into a spiral of darkness. "You are the last keeper," they chanted. "Keep the memory alive, so Duskvale will never die." I screamed, "No, I won't keep anything." The lamplight flared, and in that moment, I saw Clara behind me, in the reflection, wide-eyed, terrified. I spun around. She was really there, holding her lamp, about to speak. I could only shout, "Don't look into," but too late. The flame touched the mirror, and in a heartbeat the cellar burst with light. The song turned to screams. The ashes whirled, and in the mirror I saw Clara being pulled in, her body dragged through the glass by unseen hands. I lunged to grab her, but my hands slipped through her skin like through water. She vanished, and the mirror exploded again. When the dust settled, I fell to my knees, gasping. Nothing remained, only shards glittering faintly in the dark. And in each shard, my face stared back, fragmented, some furious, some terrified, some insane. Then I realized the horror. I had become the mirror. My skin cold as glass, my eyes reflecting silver light. Voices filled my head, hundreds of them, the souls of Duskvale. "Welcome, last keeper." I don't know how long it's been since then, years maybe, or only days. Above, moss has grown thick. Sunlight no longer reaches me. But sometimes I hear footsteps, wanderers drawn to this place. They kneel, curious, peering into the broken shards. And for a heartbeat, I see the eyes of the living reflected in me again. I want to scream a warning, but I can't. I can only watch, an old cracked mirror buried in the earth, waiting for another soul to look inside. Sometimes I dream. In my dreams, I'm still Elias, the scholar who came to Duskvale seeking an ancient rite. I still remember Lady Agatha's first gaze, the damp library air, the sound of rain against the glass. But when I wake, those memories fade, replaced by the faint crystalline sound of tapping, as if someone is knocking gently on the glass. Perhaps they are knocking on me. 3 times, never 4. One day, the wind grew stronger, and the ground trembled. Someone was digging. Light spilled through cracks above. A man's voice echoed, "God, there's a mirror down here." I saw his face lean over, his lamp shining onto the shard that held me. In his eyes, I saw Duskvale Manor reflected, whole again, untouched by fire. I wanted to scream, to warn him that it was only illusion. But I knew too well, no one hears the keeper. He reached out and touched the shard. A blue flash ignited. And in that instant, I saw countless hands rise from the darkness, ready to drag another soul inside. Then silence. Now I no longer dream. I exist within the fractured glass, gazing at the sky through cracks in the earth. Sometimes, the wind carries whispers. Clara's voice, Elias's, Lady Agatha's, and countless others, woven into one mournful lullaby. No one truly leaves Duskvale. We only take turns keeping the mirror. I don't know how much longer I'll remember the name Elias before it fades too. But if someday someone finds this place, looks into the ashes, and sees their reflection grow dim, know this: Duskvale still endures, and I am still here, watching, waiting for the next keeper.